from season 4, episode 9 may have quietly revealed that we've been looking at FROMVILLE the wrong way this entire time. We learned something surprising about the man in yellow. We got new clues about rituals, symbols, and the children's bones, and several moments in this episode made me wonder if the answers haven't been hidden from the residents of FROMVILLE. Maybe they've just been misinterpreted. I also think there's a strong possibility that music, blood, and communication systems are all connected in ways that we haven't fully understood yet. And today, I'm breaking down 5 clues you probably missed that could completely change the way we think about the man in yellow, the talismans, and the path home. I'll also be discussing a few unanswered questions I had after watching this episode. But before I get started, let me introduce myself if you're new here. And if you're not new here, then welcome back. My name is Brandi. And I realize that you could be on any channel in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really do appreciate that. So please go ahead and like this video. It really does help the channel out, and I greatly appreciate it. And also, subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy watching TV show breakdowns. Clue number 1 is Sophia activating the monsters. Now, one of the strangest moments in episode 9 happens inside the diner while everyone is preparing for the mission to retrieve the bones. The townspeople are focused on building a rope ladder to escape the sacrificial chamber. Meanwhile, Sophia is sitting near the jukebox, and when she looks interested in playing a song, Bacta immediately tells her the jukebox doesn't work. It's just for show. But then Sophia presses a series of buttons, almost like she's entering a code, and suddenly the jukebox comes to life. And the song that plays is Dr. My Eyes, a song about someone searching for understanding, trying to awaken from a dream, and realizing that time may be running out. But here's the thing. Moments after the jukebox starts blaring music, the night creatures begin moving towards the diner. Everyone's attention shifts outside, and while they're distracted, Sophia quietly uses a knife to cut the rope ladder that they're building. And here's what caught my attention. This isn't the first time that the man in yellow has been connected to some kind of communication system. We've seen the creepy phone calls where he's pretending to be Thomas. We've seen him interfere with Jim's radio tower. And now we've seen a jukebox that suddenly works the moment Sophia touches it. So that's a radio, a telephone, and a jukebox. They're all devices that transmit signals. And if you watched my previous From videos, you already know I've spoken about the connections between music, frequencies, and just information in FROMVILLE. And this all just makes me wonder if the jukebox is much more than a broken machine. Maybe it's a mouthpiece, like a way for the system to comment on the game while it's being played. And after all, we've seen the jukebox do this before. It mocked Kenny after his mother's death by playing Celebrate, and then it played Miranda's favorite song, Blue, when Henry walked into the diner. And it also taunted Acosta with the song Here Comes the Clown. So the jukebox always seems to know exactly what's happening, almost like it's watching and listening, which brings me back to Sophia. Because the real clue may not be that Sophia made the jukebox work, is that she seems to understand how to use it. And if FROMVILLE truly operates through frequencies, then maybe Sophia didn't just turn on a song. Maybe she sent a signal to activate the monsters to cause a distraction. And we saw on this episode that Jade, he made a radio for Tabitha and himself to go down into the chamber so they'll be able to communicate with Boyd and team. And Jade specifically said, we won't be able to talk back and forth to each other, but they could send signals by using poor man's Morse code. And that makes me wonder if Sophia will hijack that radio to further sabotage the mission of retrieving the children's bones. And overall, I wonder what else Sophia or the town will use to control people through frequencies. And clue number 2 is the symbols on the talismans. One of the biggest revelations in episode 9 may be that we've been looking at the town symbols the wrong way. Look at Tabitha. For 4 seasons, the townspeople have treated the talismans as only protection. But Tabitha, she studies the 2 figures on the talisman, and she comes up with a very different conclusion. She believes that she and Jade need to enter the sacrificial chambers alone. And her thoughts were confirmed when the Aunt Kubi children came and they pointed directly at her as if they were saying, it has to be you. Now, maybe Tabitha's wrong, that's still to be determined, but when Sophia found out the plans from Clara, Sophia was shook. So Tabitha is probably right. And if Sophia is telling the truth, and FROMVILLE was built on ritual, then maybe the symbols on the talismans were instructions all along. So when Sophia tells Clara, the township was built on ritual. It matters how you do something, not just what you do. That was one of the deepest lines in this episode for me, and that explains so much about FROMVILLE. So you know I had to look into towns built on rituals, and historically, ritual sites were often designed around celestial alignments, sacred geometry, and symbolic maps. The symbols weren't artwork, they were guides or maps of sorts. And honestly, that sounds like a lot of what we're seeing right now, the symbols and objects acting as guides. The talismans, jade symbols, the bottle tree. What if these weren't separate mysteries all this time? What if they were all pointing toward the same idea of using symbols and rituals to escape FROMVILLE? And on that note, there's been one thing that's always bothered me about this show: the repetitive star symbolism in this series. We've seen the Star Magic Motel sign that was present during the massacre, but it's no longer there. We saw the way that Victor requested Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. He wanted Jade to play it for him on the violin. We saw that on the license plate of the priest, it says the stars fell on Alabama. And the sun and moon imagery, obviously, on the talismans. And there are so many examples as well. But the more I think about it, I know the writers are trying to tell us something about stars or cosmic maps. And very similar to the talismans, historically, stars weren't symbols. They were instructions. They helped people navigate and find their way home. So when Donna asked what happens after they get the bones, do they just get in their car and drive away, I immediately thought about the stars. And what's interesting is the people of FROMVILLE are forced indoors every night, so it's not like they can study the stars. And what if that's by design? What if all the star symbolism we've been seeing explains how to leave FROMVILLE once they retrieve those bones? Because if Jay was right about the weird symbol that he kept seeing, and now Tabitha is right about the symbols on the talisman being instructions, then the biggest clue of the season may be that the answers have been hidden right in front of us all along. They've been right in our face, but they've always been misinterpreted. And that really makes me want to go back and rewatch all of the episodes of From and pay closer attention to the objects and the recurring symbols through the lens that these could all be instructions. Which brings us to clue number 3, the monsters being scared of the children's bones. One of the most interesting lines in episode 9 comes during Boyd, Donna, Jade, and Kenny's discussion about retrieving the children's bones from the chamber. Donna thinks the entire plan is a death trap, but then Jade says something that completely changed the way I think about the children and the monsters. According to Jade, the monsters are afraid of the bones, and that's where things get a little bit weird, because we've been told that the monsters, they sleep in the tunnels near the children's remains. So if the monsters are guarding the bones, why are they also afraid of them? And I'm guessing that he didn't just mean that the night creatures can physically be harmed by the bones, although that would be nice to see that they can be killed if they were struck by the bones, but that's too silly, right? And there's another possibility that I can't stop thinking about. We've all assumed the monsters sacrificed the children in exchange for immortality. We know that the children were sacrificed. We know a ritual took place, sort of, but we don't know who performed it. In fact, everything about the chamber, it feels organized, almost ceremonial. The children, they were dressed in white. So what if the original townspeople sacrificed the children seeking immortality? And what if the ritual worked, just not in the way that they intended? Remember, it matters how you do something, not just what you do. Because the more I think about it, the more I wonder if the monsters weren't the perpetuators. What if they were victims too? What if the people who participated in the ritual were transformed into the creatures we see today because something went wrong with the ritual? And I've always wondered something else. If these creatures were once humans who sacrificed their children for immortality, why would they choose to live like this? They're hiding in caves during the day. They're wandering the town at night, terrorizing people. They're trapped in the same cycle over and over again. That doesn't feel like a reward. It feels more like a punishment, which is why I keep coming back to the bones. Maybe the monsters aren't afraid of them because they have some special power. Maybe they're afraid of them because the bones are a reminder of the choice that destroyed their humanity, a reminder of the crime that created them. And clue number 4 is realizing that the man in yellow may have been amongst the people since season 1. One of the biggest revelations in episode 9 comes from a single line of dialogue. The man in yellow tells Elgin, "I can only take the form of people who have died here." And earlier in the episode, Sophia tells Clara that she remembers when Clara first arrived in town, which means that Sophia hasn't just been manipulating events recently, she's been amongst the people for a very long time, potentially since season 1. And that raises a fascinating question. If the man in yellow can only appear as people who died in FROMVILLE, how many times has he already done it? Because suddenly every dead resident or new arrival becomes a potential disguise. So who could the man in yellow have been disguised as previously? Now, my first thought is Tilly. She was always suspicious, and we never even saw her get buried after Fatima killed her. But Tilly didn't arrive to FROMVILLE on the bus until season 1, episode 10. So who was the man in yellow disguised as before? Now, it could have been somebody that we didn't see so much, somebody that we didn't even know their name, but most likely it would have been somebody who died in season 1. So could it have been Father Khatri? Could it have been Lauren, Megan, or Frank? But that would be strange because these characters were killed by monsters, and it doesn't seem like Sophia should be able to be killed by the monsters, right? I don't know, guys, just speculating, but just tell me, who do you think the man in yellow could have been disguised as in season 1? And I would be gagged if we find out that it was Father Khatri, but I haven't quite worked it out in my mind if that's possible just yet. And speaking of Father Khatri, let's move on to clue number 5, the liquor bottle. Now, one of the most subtle clues to me in episode 9 doesn't happen in the tunnels. It happens over a drink. After accepting Tabitha and Jade's plans to go into the chambers by themselves, Boyd, he sits down with Kenny to let him know the update, and they shared the last of Father Khatri's liquor. And I don't think it's random that the writers keep showing us Boyd drinking Father Khatri's stash. And in this episode, they make sure to mention that this is the last of the bottle. And on the last episode, Father Khatri appeared to Boyd and reminded him of something that he's been fighting for years. He tells Boyd, "You cannot save everybody." And for the first time, Boyd seems to listen, which brings me back to the liquor. Now think about what the bottle can represent. This isn't just any liquor. This is Father Khatri's liquor. The same Father Khatri who has continued guiding Boyd even after death. And now the bottle is empty. The last drink is gone. Could that mean that the guidance is gone? The safety net is gone? And there's also another detail that I'm not quite sure what to make of. But when Boyd pours the drink for Kenny, you can see that something's floating around in the drink. It could be nothing. It could just be some leftover sediment. But after a season filled with blood transfers, contamination, influence, and the man in yellow finding new ways to enter people's minds, I couldn't help but notice it. But still, whether that detail matters or not, I think the symbolism of this scene is pretty clear. Father Khatri's guidance may have run its course, and Boyd is making decisions based on a mission rather than the individual. Now let's move on to the question section. First question, why on earth would Elgin show Sophia the picture? I was so frustrated watching that scene because that was such a huge clue that the team could have used to get ahead of everything with the man in yellow. But honestly, I was also frustrated with Acosta because she was supposed to be supervising the operation. And at this point, anybody who knows that there's like this intelligent force against them, I think that Acosta should have made some kind of clear rule that anything suspicious needs to go directly to Boyd or Acosta. Any suspicious photos, any suspicious objects. I just think it should have been made clear, especially given Elgin's history. He probably shouldn't have even been working on this task. And next question, what happened to the hidden door in the basement? I thought we would at least got some mention of that being a potential extra exit for Jade and Tabitha, just in case things went awry. I don't know. I just feel like maybe they should have Randall or somebody just work on trying to unseal that door in the basement because it sounds like it might come in handy, especially since we saw Sophia cut the ladder. And what is going to happen to Fatima? I must admit, Fatima has not been my favorite character, not gonna lie, but I am really worried for her. She is going through so much. And I wonder if Fatima is gonna end up going on a killing spree similar to Abby, and if Alice is going to have to put her down the same way Boyd had to put Abby down. And Victor, I am somewhat happy that Boyd locked Victor up, but I don't want Victor to stay in there too long, because if he does, I think he's like a sitting duck and Henry could get to him and kill him very easily if he does snap. But Victor did need a timeout because he was not understanding Boyd's reasoning, because Boyd had the right to question the boy in white's intentions. And I understand that Victor wants to listen to the boy in white because the boy in white helped him survive for 40 years in FROMVILLE, but come on, Victor, the boy in white is not helping you get home. But nonetheless, guys, if you made it this far in a video, please do me a favor and drop me down a clapping emoji below. Let me know that you're still here. As always, let me know what clues or theories that you have after watching this episode. Honestly, I could go on and on and on and on, but I have to go tend to my children. But this episode was phenomenal. This is definitely in my top 5 best episodes of From. And if I was a full-time content creator, I would be able to get at least 3 videos out of this one episode because there is so much to unpack here. But be sure to like this video and hype it up too if you have any points, and let me know what shows you're watching. The next show that I will be covering is Silo on July 3rd, so make sure that you're all caught up on Silo on Apple TV. But that's it for now, guys. Until I see you next time, stay safe out there. Peace.